Greetings and welcome to Oracle Developer Live. My name is Sharat Chander, longtime member of the Java team, and I'll be your host today. Now, Oracle Developer Live is our event series here at Oracle, where it gives us a chance to bring modern developer-related technologies to you to address the landscape of the myriad of applications that you are able to build. We've done many of these editions in the past, focusing on topics such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud, MySQL, database, and our second time around here with Java innovations. This event allows us to showcase many of the innovative things that we're doing around Java in a broad and deep sense to improve your approach to the language as well as the platform. Throughout today's event, during the keynote, as well as in sessions, feel free to take screenshots of topics and information that are of interest to you, and feel free to share that socially as well using the Oracle Dev Live hashtag. Now, as I said, this is our second time around doing Oracle Developer Live with focus on Java. The first time we did this was last year, and if you missed the event or would like to repeat and rewatch some of the content we did last time, you're welcome to replay all of that material that we have hosted on YouTube for you. So please explore that content. Some of it went into features such as Java 15, topics such as microservices, an exploration into GraalVM, as well as other broad related open JDK topics that you can then go back and watch at your own time. Now, today's event is going to focus on Java from 5 dimensions. We're going to cover all of the new features that are innovative in terms of what's offered in Java 16. We're also going to cover features that are addressing application performance, but also at the same time being able to keep your application stable in your production environment. You're also going to hear information and some exploration in terms of how Java is also remaining secure. And most importantly, especially for me, is you're going to learn a lot about the investments we're making in community. As we continue to make investments in Oracle in terms of the technology innovation, we want to also make sure we're putting effort and time in making sure the community and the ecosystem at large has access to information to accelerate learning, but also being able to collaborate with one another in the method and the channel that is most convenient to you. Before we begin, I would like to say happy birthday, Java, again. Obviously, we celebrated Java's 25th birthday last year. And all of you have shared so many of your unique stories, from customers to the community. All of you have been moved by Java in interesting ways in terms of how it's moved your career, how it's moved innovation, but also moved your businesses forward. And we encourage all of you to continue to express all of your stories in terms of your journey with Java such that we can all learn from it. Feel free to use the Moved by Java hashtag on social so we can understand and appreciate your journey in Java. I would also like to take this time to also say thank you. Thank you to all of the Java user groups around the world that continue to celebrate this celebration of Java and its 25 years of innovation. You've kept the stories alive by all of the meetups that you've been holding over the past year, giving your members space to collaborate and communicate, but also express their history and the meaning of Java to them. Java user groups in North America, such as that in the Garden State in New York, in Knoxville, Tennessee, and Chicago, in Atlanta, and in San Francisco, I want to say thank you. In Europe, Java user groups in Dublin and the Netherlands, the London Java community, the Java user group in Utrecht, I want to say thank you as well. In Africa, all of the great work that you're doing in Morocco, as well as in the Josie Jug in Johannesburg. And I shall return one day, and I'm looking forward to it. And of course, all of the Java user groups that are across Asia, from New Delhi to Chandigarh, from Japan to Sydney and Taipei, all of you as Java user group members and leaders, we're very thankful that you continue this celebration and ensure that we understand where you've come from, but also what you're doing to keep Java vibrant for the next 25 years. As part of this celebration, we also are continuing forward with a special offer from Oracle University To accelerate your learning, they are offering you free Java training as well as access to the Java certification exam for $25. This limited time offer expires on April 25th, but it's also your opportunity to invest in yourself. You know, my parents always used to tell me growing up, Sharath, you know less than you know. And it's one of my favorite quotes from them because basically it means every day I have something new I can learn. And we as developers, we need to continue to refine and explore our craft, improve on what we know, and expand our knowledge in terms of new areas that Java is taking us. And this offer from Oracle University gives you that chance to advance your skills and future-proof your career. So we look forward to you taking advantage of this unique offer. And then obviously, we also want to hear from you because your shared stories matter. We have one of the most vibrant and largest Java communities on the planet. In terms of technology, Java is one of the largest, and we want to hear from you. Your shared stories, your shared knowledge allows us to make better decisions. So please, whether you're in the Java community or a user of our commercial offering, we want to hear from you. Understand how you're using Java, where you're using Java, and why you're using Java, so we can make better decisions moving forward to keep Java vibrant for all of you. Now, I'll be back later in the keynote to go over a special unique program, as well as cover some housekeeping in preparation for the sessions you're about to watch today. But with that, I would like to now hand it over to our featured keynote speaker, Chad Arimura, Vice President of Java Developer Relations here at Oracle. Chad, welcome to the keynote.
Thanks, Sharath. I'm so excited to be here. As you mentioned, we've spent the last year celebrating 25 years of Java with a campaign called Our World Moved by Java. We've received so many submissions and so many stories about how Java has moved both individuals and businesses around the world, and we look forward to continuing to receive those stories for a few more months. It's really hard to understate, but Java has truly moved the world forward, no matter how you define the word move, whether physically, by moving goods around the world, figuratively, by moving innovation and business forward, or emotionally, by sharing stories of hardship and triumph through the use of the Java programming platform. Again, no matter how you spin it, Java really is the #1 language in the world. Don't be fooled by the headline-grabbing statistics that might say there are other languages vying for the top position. Because by almost any account, Java is #1 across so many different industries. 69% of developers surveyed run Java. 98% of the Fortune 100 are hiring Java developers. That's 98 of the largest 100 companies in the US are hiring Java developers. What a tremendous statistic. 50 billion Java virtual machines are powering code out there in the world. We're just getting started. Many of the reasons that Java has been successful for the past 25 years is due to the team's relentless pursuit for developer productivity and application performance. And this remains true to this day in this constantly evolving programming paradigms, developer fashions, hardware, deployment models. In 25 years, a lot's changed. It's absolutely critical, though, that the team remains relentless against these changing paradigms. We believe that's a big reason why Java will continue to be successful for the next 25 years. But this relentless pursuit is not easy because there are powerful forces at play. The two forces are, on one side, you have this demand for more innovation, just move faster, give us new features. These other languages are doing this, why can't Java do this? We want to fix mistakes of the past. Doesn't matter, let's just draw a line in the sand and keep moving forward. And then you have the force of conservatism, which is slow down, move carefully. There are millions upon millions of Java developers out there who have learned the skills. We don't want to sort of alienate those users. Compatibility is the utmost important. Let's just be thoughtful and innovative about how we move forward the platform forward. The reality is, stewardship is a balance of these two forces. And as Brian likes to say, or as Brian Getz likes to say, it's somewhere in the middle, but those at the wheel are hated by both sides. The team does this by upholding consistent virtues. These virtues have been a true north for the Java team for the past quarter century and remain to this day. As Sharat mentioned, these are foundations of the presentations you'll hear today around security, ease of use, reliability, and platform independence. We've talked quite a bit about the release cadence, and this is one of the biggest changes to the ecosystem in the last few years. As you can see, the first 20 some odd years of Java, new versions of Java were released every 2 to 5 years, and they were based around a central feature. And if that feature wasn't ready, well, you just had to wait longer because you don't want to put something in, you don't want to rush it in to Java. This worked for the first 20 years of Java because generally that's how software was deployed. It would be these long deployment cycles, waterfall methods, and developers expected to get their programming language updates around the same cadence. But the world has changed. And so one of the big changes we made was with Java 10 in 2018, where we changed the release cadence to a time-based release cadence, where every 6 months, a new version of Java is released like clockwork on time. Now we can get innovation faster into the hands of developers without disrupting that balance between innovation and conservatism. And we look forward to announcing that Java 16 is here. We're extremely excited about Java 16. In terms of the size of the release, you'll notice that it looks pretty predictable and approachable, just like the releases before it that have been released on the 6-month release cadence. If you look at starting at Java 10, these are JDK enhancement proposals, or essentially features that have been added to the language, and we're pretty consistent and it's pretty predictable. These releases don't look like releases of the past, where if you look at 7, 8, and 9, we had upwards of 90 to 100 JDK enhancement proposals or features. So now it's a much more predictable pace of innovation every 6 months. One of the worries that we heard was nobody's going to be able to keep up with release cadence. It turns out that that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, many of the popular libraries and frameworks that you depend on in your Java application are already supported as of today, already green on JDK 16. In fact, I built this slide before today, and they were already green on JDK 16 by using the early access builds that are available well in advance of the release date of a particular version. Let's not forget about your IDE though. Thanks, Tricia, for the quote. IntelliJ IDEA is committed to supporting the latest Java, in many cases, the early access versions of Java. We release versions of IntelliJ IDEA 3 times a year, which means that each new release supports a new version of Java or improves upon the existing one. And of course, as always, we'd like to thank the ecosystem for their contributions to Java, both large and small. Java is truly a global effort by numerous individuals and companies around the world, and we're proud of to be stewards of this ecosystem. As stewards, it's important that we offer a simple yet powerful support and updates offering, and that's our Java SE subscription model. Thousands of customers from the largest companies, in fact, half of the global 100 are Java SE subscription customers, all the way down to individual contributors rely on the SE subscription to get their support, performance, stability, and security updates directly from the stewards and the contributors and authors of much of the code in the platform. We want to take a moment to thank all of our customers, both large and small, for supporting the Java Platform Group's work in Java. The Java SE subscription has many layers of value to it. On top of the trusted JDK, you get the global Oracle support 24/7, 365 in 27 different languages. As I mentioned, you get security patches and support updates directly from the authors that have written the original code much of the time inside the platform. You can get access to bug fixes before even we release them into the public. And we have the Java Success Program, which are additional perks for Oracle Java SE subscription customers. And then we'd also like to announce that the Oracle GraalVM entitlement for Enterprise GraalVM is included now free of charge with the Java SE subscription. So you can accelerate the application performance, sometimes to instantaneous startup time at no additional cost. Let's turn our attention to the development process of Java, and that's around OpenJDK. OpenJDK is literally, by definition, the place to collaborate around an open source implementation of Java SE and related projects. By virtue of its name, all of the development is done, or most, if not all of the development, is done in the open. So all of the decisions, the discussions, the conversations with everybody working on particular features in the JDK, you can actually find in public mailing lists. You can subscribe to all of the mailing lists that you're interested in. You can be a part of that conversation of designing the future of Java. The development happens in the open, the conversations happen in the open, and we want you too to be a part of this development process. We welcome ecosystem participation. There are many levels of becoming a contributor to Java. And of course, you can start as an author, and depending on your commitment and the level of time you put in, you can eventually become a project lead yourself. This is not for everybody, but we absolutely welcome people who want to be part of the future of developing the Java platform. Go to openjdk.java.net/contribute for more. And the best place to start is the OpenJDK Developers Guide. It's a living, breathing guide to everything about the development process, the tooling, the standards, and more. So you can find that at openjdk.java.net/guide. We've even got a podcast on that, a little plug for the Inside.java podcast, How to Contribute to OpenJDK with Stuart Marks and Jesper Wilhelmsen. You can find this, it's episode 11 at inside.java/podcast. On that note, we do want to welcome all of the new JDK contributors who have joined the party in the past 6 months. 28 new authors, 2 reviewer promotions, and 8 committer promotions. Thank you very much for being part of the future of Java. Now, we understand that not everybody has the time or the inclination to contribute directly to the language, but there are plenty of other ways to get involved with Java. One way is by providing feedback for features that we're working on as part of these many new mechanisms we have to release new things into the platform. We have experimental features, incubator modules, and preview features. And we understand this can get confusing. There's a very good blog post on inside.java. Search for the preview features blog post, and we'll give you much of the definition of these and how you can get involved. But the message here is that we love feedback, and so you too can get involved as we introduce new features into the platform that aren't quite ready for prime time, but you can get access to these either through early access builds or even as part of the GA releases. This is an example of the preview feature system in action. As you can see here, we've released multiple features into the JDK that have gone through a preview release system. Now, I want to remind you that in the preview release system, these are 95% of the way to completion. So we deem these as features that are almost ready for prime time and to be considered a standard feature of the JDK. But we want to get just a little bit more feedback. We're not quite sure if it's there yet. And we want to get real world feedback from those out there who are using it. We're excited to announce that records and pattern matching for instance of are now standard as part of the Java 16 release. And the JPackage tool came out of the incubator phase and is now a standard tool in the JDK. By way of example, let's take switch expressions. Switch expressions were made available as a preview in Java 12. When they were previewed, they were almost complete. In fact, if you look at this code here, this is almost like what they look like now as standard. However, what you see in the red there is that in order to return a result from a block of code, if one of your cases is a block, is to use the break result. So what you can see, the original proposition or proposal was to overload the break keyword and to return the result. Now you may ask yourself, why didn't you just use the return keyword? Well, that unfortunately works differently. That would return us and actually escape us out of the entire method. What we want is just to return directly from the switch expression and return the value back to the variable j here. Well, we got feedback and we learned that break was a little bit confusing for a number of reasons. The second reason being, one of the great benefits of switch expressions is that we could actually get away from having the keyword break in all of our different cases because we now have this nice arrow sign and then return the value to the right side of the arrow sign. So we no longer have to have breaks in every case. Based off that feedback, we changed the break keyword and we introduced a new keyword called yield. And suddenly the clouds parted and everything made much more sense. So that was introduced into a second preview of switch expressions available in Java 13. And then everybody was pretty happy. So we made it a standard feature in Java 14 as part of JEP 361. So that's an example of the path through the preview model in the JDK. But the OpenJDK is not just about the language. It's also about the tooling available inside the JDK. And there's plenty of great tools that you should be familiar with. Here are just a few that I'll briefly mention. I'll start on the right side. JPackage, or the packaging tool, is the tool I mentioned earlier that moved into standard or became a part of the standard JDK as of Java 16. What you do with the JPackage tool is you can create a platform-specific executable on your platform. So it will take all of your dependencies and everything you need, the runtime, and build it into a native executable on your specific platform. Moving to the left, we have JShell, the Java Shell tool, also known as a read, evaluate, print loop, or REPL. This is a quick way to execute Java code on the command line and get back the results. It's a great way to try Java code very quickly. It's also a great way to hack with friends or to teach Java to in a classroom setting. JLink is a tool to help you create a smaller custom JRE by just taking the parts of the JDK that you need, that your application needs, and creating your own custom runtime or custom JDK. You can use that together with JPackage to create a smaller executable, and that's what the Java linker does for you. And this is really great because oftentimes your application doesn't need the entire JDK in every module in order to run. I do want to remind you that using JLink, your application doesn't have to be modularized. Even if you're using the traditional class path, you can still use JLink to create a runtime just for your application. And then finally, JDepreScan is a way to scan your application for the usage of deprecated APIs inside your code. So it's something that you definitely want to take a look at, as some APIs are being deprecated for removal in future releases. And it's not just about technology. It's, as Sharath mentioned, something that's extremely important to us is a thriving and healthy community and ecosystem. We truly believe that this is one of the key success factors that has made Java what it is today. We continue to invest in many programs across the spectrum, and I want to point out one program in particular. If you look on the, I suppose, the right side of this slide, you would see that I want to highlight the Java Champions program. The JCs, as they're known, are a selected group of individuals in the community who have gone truly above and beyond as being a part of the success story of Java. And I want to highlight and welcome and congratulate the new members to the Java Champions program. I also want to welcome the new developer advocates that work on our team here at Oracle. I want to welcome Nikolai Parlog and Billy Carando to the team. You'll be able to find, you probably know them already, but if you don't, look forward to seeing them in your community at your jug, whether virtually or in person. And we're super excited to have them as part of the developer relations team here at Oracle. And we definitely need more people because we're working on so many different ways for you to level up your skills and advance your career in Java. We've introduced multiple programs over the past year and also built and continue to evolve existing programs. For example, you can see our YouTube page at youtube.com/Java, where you can find a ton of content that will help you build your skills in Java. We also have inside.java, which is an aggregation of all types of content that have been produced directly from the team that's building Java at Oracle. We also have the Inside Java podcast, and I have another slide on that. And we continue to work through our Twitter account to engage with the community at twitter.com/Java. And as Shar mentioned, there's many of ways through Oracle University to uplevel your skills at education.oracle.com, one of which is the special they're running on the Java SC11 certification and free Java training for that. As I mentioned, the Inside Java podcast is an initiative we announced at the last Oracle Developer Live. Maybe it was the conference before that. But we're about 15 episodes as of today. Unfortunately, the JDK 16 episode happened to be episode 15, but that's okay. This is a way, if you like to consume content through podcasts, we are interviewing about 25 to 35 minutes people from the team who are working on these technologies. So for example, we recorded one about JDK Flight Recorder with Marcus Gromlund, JPackage, as I talked about, with Kevin Rushforth, the Vector API with John Rose and Paul Sandoz, and then we released JDK 16 overview with Michael Vichdet. So please check out the Inside Java podcast. We're always looking for feedback as well, so please let us know if you have feedback. Also, we love reviews, so please leave reviews as well. And then we'd also like to announce today that we are releasing the Inside Java Newscast. The name may change, but it's brand new, and it'll be featured as a series on our YouTube page if you go to youtube.com/Java, which is a weekly summary of everything going on in the JDK, delivered directly from the team here at Oracle. This is a picture of Nikolai in his famous purple suit. I don't know if we'll all buy purple suits, but we'll just have to find out. In closing, I want to end by turning our attention to the many innovation projects that are happening around the JDK, which help also direct much of the work that go into Java. In a moment, you'll hear from my colleague Aurelio Garcia-Ribeyro about JDK 16 and a lot of these features. You'll notice that many of the JEPs that are in 16 have been directed and produced by many of these projects here. So I just want to say buckle up because 16 is here. Thank you very much for listening to this opening keynote. Aurelio, over to you.
Thank you, Chad. So JDK 16 delivers 17 JEPs, which stand for JDK Enhancement Proposal. That's the unit of work that we use to specify the largest changes to the platform. I've grouped them into 6 categories. Right? We have the changes to the Java language, which make it possible to write Java code more concisely. These are the changes that are most visible to all Java developers. If your code more clearly specifies what you're trying to do, it is easier to write code that has less bugs and that later will be easier to maintain. In this release, we have pattern matching added to the standard. It allows us to express the conditional extraction of components from objects in a more concise and safe manner. Pattern matching, as Chad mentioned, was introduced with JDK 14. It went through a second preview in 15 and is now part of the standard. This is, by the way, now appears to be the new norm. 2 previews for most language features. Of course, there's no set number of previews. The other new change to the standard is the introduction of records, which will save developers the need to write a lot of boilerplate when one is trying to create a class that will simply aggregate a bunch of mutable data. So the compiler will now do most of the tedious work for us, and again, will make the code easier to read. Now, there's also some changes to the Java virtual machine. Unlike the changes to the language feature, which require that you go and code again to take advantage of these features, changes to the Java virtual machine are what I like to call automagical. You just grab some old code compiled in an old version of Java, run it in this new version, and without you having to change anything but the runtime, you will get the benefit of these improvements, right? The two changes in this release are, one, an improvement in CGC, in concurrent thread processing. In order to truly parallelize the way garbage collection works, the thread stack processing has been moved from save point to the concurrent phase. And that was the last remaining roadblock to really have a garbage collector that works in parallel. The other change is a way in how Java manages the elastic metaspace. Before this change, when memory in the metaspace was no longer needed, it was returned to the JVM, but the JVM wasn't really prompt at passing it back to the operating system. Now, with this change, the JVM allocates memory in smaller chunks. It reduces the class loader overhead and fragmentation, which makes it easier to return the unused space to the operating system. This will make it so that the total memory footprint of your program will decrease. The next category is improvements in the libraries and tools. In my mind, this is the secret weapon of Java programs. If you rely on the libraries, as the libraries improve, your programs, again, magically improve with you just applying changes to the JDK. Now, in this case, we have added a new API for inter-process communication, right? Unix sockets are very similar to TCP/IP sockets, but they're meant to be used for inter-process communications rather than communicating with other servers. They're more efficient and more secure. We're also bringing along a tool for packaging self-contained Java applications. Before, well, in the first years of Java, the standard model for shipping your Java application was to have a Java runtime, a single Java runtime in your system, and then have every Java application share that runtime and use it. Now, that saved some resources, but it made it so that distributing Java applications was a bit cumbersome, because you normally distributed only the bytecode and expected later to have that bytecode launched by some runtime that already existed in your system. This means that Java applications look and behave differently. They were not packaged in MSI installers or as RPMs. They wouldn't be added to the add remove programs on Windows. Using JPackage, you could create a bundle that includes your runtime, well, your application, and a runtime exclusively for your application. That also allows you to have a smaller runtime because you can use JLink to shrink the runtime that your application uses. Since it's no longer going to be shared with other applications, anything that your application doesn't need won't be required in the runtime. So with JPackage, you can grab this and create a package that will look like a native package for each one of the supported platforms. So in the end, you can distribute your Java application as an MSI installer for Windows, or PMG on Mac OS, or an RPM package or a Debian package for Linux. Now, moving the platform forward, it's not only about adding new functionality, it's also about carefully trimming out things that are harmful or that will make it harder for you to update later versions of the JDK. With JDK 9 and the introduction of Jigsaw, we gained the ability to hide some of the JDK internal APIs from developers. But we didn't turn that on by default because we wanted to give developers that were using those internal APIs against our advice, because we always warned that those internal APIs were not to be used. They're meant for the to be used internally within the JDK to deliver the public APIs. Well, in any case, those internal APIs from JDK 11 to JDK 15, you get a warning in your program the first time you use them, but they will continue to be visible. On JDK 16, we have ratcheted up the encapsulation. And now by default, they will not be accessible, except for a handful of critical APIs like SAN, MIST, and SAFE, which will remain as they were on JDK 15. Now, if you're using these APIs, don't panic. There's a simple flag that will allow you to revert back to the way it worked on JDK 15. But please don't use that simple tool. It's meant to be just a stopgap so that you can fix your programs. The real solution is fix the problem. We also have added warnings for value-based classes. And those are classes that in the future, with the improvements that we'll make with Project Valhalla, will be converted into a new type of class, right? They will lose their identity, and therefore, if you're using them with for synchronization, or if you're using the standard constructors, those will no longer be available. We're warning you so that you can stop using that now. JDK 16 also delivers 4 preview features or incubators that allows us to gather feedback before we add these features to the Java platform in a more permanent way. As Chad explains, with the 6-month between releases cadence, we now have the luxury of letting developers give us feedback so that we can fine tune. This is normally not major changes, but a change here and there that would have made the feature a bit clunky if it had been just added directly to the standard. In JDK 15, we have sealed classes, and so you can seal the class and interface and restrict which other classes or interfaces may extend or implement them. We provide an initial implementation of an API to express vector computations that will reliably compile at runtime to optimal vector hardware instructions on supported CPUs that will allow us to gain some significant performance improvement. Then we have a couple of APIs, courtesy of Project Panama, that are trying to provide the framework to replace the clunky mechanisms used by Java native interface, JNI, to interact with non-Java code. So even though JNI has been available since Java 1.1, it requires maintaining a lot of artifacts and using different tool chains in each platform. So that's quite painful. We don't want that. Other frameworks have appeared, but it's not ideal. Project Panama aims at making it trivial for Java developers to use any native library. And finally, the JEPs are not only about delivering changes to the binaries that you download, they're also about improving the way we work in OpenJDK. So the last 4 changes are visible only to OpenJDK developers, not to developers that run Java applications or just use the JDK to program in Java. Okay, these will make it. I mean, the rest of us will still get the benefit of these changes because it will make it easier for these Java developers, for these developers of Java, to deliver future versions faster and with better quality. Now, I'm not going to cover all of these in detail here because I have a session, not right after these keynote, but the one after. You'll have one session in between. So if you would like to hear more about each one of these features, I invite you to join my session. You'll have right after this keynote, you should go to either the Java Language Features Spring 2021 edition, or the session about building scalable microservices for Java using Helidon and Coherence CE. But after those, I invite you to join me, where we will go into a lot more detail. And likewise, there is a couple of other sessions in the schedule that will deep dive even further into some of this. With that, Sharat?
Thank you, Aurelio. And thank you, Chad, for both of you joining us today for today's keynote. Both of you have presented a lot of useful information for our attendees to sort of get a summary of what today's day will be presenting to everyone. So a little bit of a recap. It's important, Java 16 is now available. We want all of you to start downloading it, start using it to build, test, and deploy your applications. Now, this is really important because all of our innovation starts at OpenJDK. Oftentimes, I'll get questions, where does the magic happen? And I always find that to be a very interesting question because the reality is there isn't any magic. We do this transparently in the open, as Chad has covered. OpenJDK is not a thing, it is a place. It's a place for innovation. It is a place for collaboration. It's a place for you to communicate and give us feedback. And the results of all of that, all of our investments, our leadership, and our stewardship has brought Java 16 to you today. So we encourage you to all test out Java 16. But it's also important to look at the future. In 6 months, Java 17 will be upon us. And early access builds of Java 17 are already available. As the old saying goes now, I think it's a little bit old, as we've gotten further down the evolution path in technology, test early and test often. So here's your chance to start testing early and often on Java 17 and putting that into your build pipelines. Now, both Chad and Aurelio have covered the importance of community, and it truly does matter. Our stewardship of the ecosystem is just as important as our leadership of the technology. And it's an interesting position to be in. Chad covered that place in terms of the technology position we're in. You have some developers and enterprises and ecosystems that want to have consistent and pace at their own standards. But then you have the other edge, where developers want to move fast, test things rapidly, always be on the bleeding edge. It's no different in the community. We have people in the community that have started to rely upon specific channels that they have been accustomed to receiving information, allowing them to collaborate and communicate with the world around them. But we also have a new generation of developers that are following new methodologies in terms of how to collaborate, how to connect, how to receive information. And it's our responsibility to be in that middle ground, to ensure the programs of the past that continue to offer value get cultivated and continue to bear fruit, but also take investments into new areas. And that's where we're coming today with new members in terms of joining our team to bring forth new avenues and perspectives for us to be able to share information with you such that it can help future-proof your career. Many of you have bet your career on Java, and we want to make sure that career is as vibrant as possible. So please participate in the community. It's a great place to actually continue your endeavor on this Java journey. Now, for today, we want to make this experience for all of you even more engaging than it's been in previous editions. Moving forward with Oracle Developer Live, in this digital world we live in, we're also going to start offering you digital badges. And we start today with Java Innovations, where you can earn flair to utilize on your profiles moving forward. So throughout today, in the sessions you'll sit in on, attend the sessions, listen very carefully to some of the information the speakers are presenting, because there will be places where there are subtle hints for clues as far as what you should be focusing in on. You'll then have an opportunity to take quizzes, and the more answers you get correct, the more better opportunity you have to earn this digital flair we're showing you here today. And we're great and very excited that this digital flair that we're starting with Java today features Duke, the longtime mascot for the ecosystem. You'll be able to share this badge on social, and you can look for more information on this digital badge program at developer.oracle.com/devlive. And we hope to bring you more digital badges in future editions of the Dev Live program. Now, a little bit of housekeeping. As you migrate to sessions later today, what you would like to do now is move back to the agenda and look for the yellow button for the sessions that are currently taking place or about to take place. That yellow button is an indicator that allows you to click on that button to then join that session. Now, obviously, we have 2 tracks of content that we're deploying today. In any time slot, should you want to migrate from one session to another, you're more than welcome to do that. Make sure to click on the Join Now button of the session you want to start at, but you're more than welcome to also click on the Join Now button should you want to migrate. Obviously, we want to understand Java in many different facets. Some information may be already known to you, and we want to give you that flexibility and opportunity to move from track to track based on your experiences, your needs, and your areas of interest. And with that, our next sessions that are happening right after this keynote, the first one is, as Aurelio talked about, the Java Language Futures. We did the fall 2020 edition of this session back in September, led by Gavin Bierman. He's going to give you some updates in terms of the enhancements we've introduced in terms of the improving and simplifying the Java language. Obviously, as we make improvements, we want to make it much more approachable, readable, and writable. Because at the end of the day, not only do we want to write efficient code, we want to maintain efficient code because someone down the line is going to pick up your application, and we want to make that transition as seamless as possible. Now, we also have some peripheral areas of Java that we're also exploring, especially in the microservices space. Last year in September, we also had a session that covered a little bit of an introduction on Helidon and how we're making investments in the microservices space. And this is an update in terms of that progress from September, such that you can take advantage of today. So with that, we want to give you some time back in your day, catch your breath, understand all of the resources that are available to you, take advantage of the badging program, take advantage of that quiz, as well as taking advantage of the Oracle University Special for Certification to reinvest in yourself. I'll see you a little bit later in the day with our panel session. And with that, thank you for joining our keynote today, and I look forward to seeing you a little bit later. Thank you.